Hey guys, so I wanted to show you guys and just discuss a little bit about the truck, let you guys see a little bit of the inside, and we'll talk about what makes my truck so top heavy besides just the body. This cage up here is metal, so that's going to add a lot of weight, plus all the stuff in it, plus all the back. This body is pretty, for a Lexan body, it's pretty damn heavy. It's just as heavy as a hard body would be, but most of the weight is center and in the back. There's not any weight in the front because that's all just thin Lexan, right? Like whenever you pick it up from here, it tilts back, so that shows you where all the weight is sitting. And that's not even me putting my fingers in the middle of the body. But anywho, so that adds a lot of weight, and that's way up high outside of the chassis, just like this is way up outside of the chassis, on top of the chassis, and it adds weight here on the sides of the vehicle, on the very edges. Whereas like if you did have any top weight anywhere, you would want it to be as center as possible with inside of the chassis, meaning if the chassis is this wide, you want all your weight inside of it. That way on side angles and stuff, you're less likely for that high weight to have more of an effect on side hilling and stuff. Whereas like if it's closer to the sides and the edges of the truck, it's even more debilitating, or I don't know how to put it. It's even more detrimental to the performance of the vehicle. But yeah, not to mention all this stuff going on here, we also typically have another big long 5200 mAh 2S battery that sits in here on top of the 3S 4000 mAh that sits in here that powers the truck. So that's a lot of weight up top, and it's also very high. This is another really good reason why it's top heavy, at least in the back part of it, is we have this giant chunk of metal sitting right on top of the chassis. And we're going to get rid of that, because this is essentially, it wouldn't be any different having this chunk of steel right here than if I would have this chunk of steel in the bed of this truck, because this is about where, I mean, this is where the bed sits on top of this. Is without this chunk of steel, it actually sits along here, so it actually sits a little lower, about a 1/4 inch lower. So once I take this off, it'll drop it down a little lower, which I like, and that, I mean, I prefer that. I just put this back here to add weight to it because I wanted my truck heavy. I like it squatting. I like the tires gripping around rocks, and the more weight you have, the better traction you're going to get. Yes, it's harder on your electronics because it's a higher payload, but I've had this truck for about a year now, and I've been using the same motor that came with it, and it's a stock brushed motor. So my truck is honestly probably around 10 pounds. So it's not a crazy heavy truck, but it's also not light by any means. So that should give you a good representation of, you know, how good the stock will hold up with a bunch of weight added to it. The only reason I added the weight is because I didn't have any money for upgrading parts and adding weight that way, so I just had to add weight any way that I could to allow the truck to have overall better performance, not necessarily on side hilling or climbing capability, but just traction. Yeah, so it's a little bit about that. You guys want to see part of the inside of it while we're out here. See, this is his head. It's one servo, and then his torso is the other servo inside of his shirt. And then there's like, it's hard to see, but we have him basically zip tied, that bottom servo zip tied to the seat, so he doesn't move. His arms and stuff can move, but he doesn't move. And then for his pants, we just took his legs out and stuffed them with like pieces of cloth to fill them in, and he doesn't have feet or shoes. One of his shoes is actually right here in his passenger seat, and we got a bunch of random stuff in here right now. Our camera's out here in the way, but a bunch of random stuff in the seat. We made a little funnel, which is pretty cool. little beanie, which is also pretty cool. But yeah, pretty neat stuff.